Aaron Rodgers is preparing for what is going to be his final season in the NFL. The Steelers were in win-now mode for the entirety of the Mike Tomlin era, and that is not changing in Mike McCarthy's first year with the team. And that was fully confirmed when Rodgers put pen to paper and signed to be the team's quarterback in 2026. But just how well equipped is the 42-year-old quarterback to have success this fall? In this video, I'll be grading 4 areas of the team around Rodgers heading into this season. At the end, we'll see if I think this is a positive situation overall. And of course, this isn't looking at the play of Aaron Rodgers individually, but more of what I think he's actually going to have to work with. So let's get right into it. And we are going to start with the offensive skill positions as a whole. That's receivers, running backs, tight ends, everything there. But we'll start with the receivers. And I think this is I don't want to call it a top-heavy room, because I think the 3 at the top, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman Jr., new acquisition this year, and then their second-round pick, Jeremy Bernard, I think those 3 are going to be super solid for Aaron Rodgers to be throwing the ball to. I do have questions about their depth at receiver. Roman Wilson and Ben Skoranek kind of being those first 2 guys. There are other guys on the depth chart, but presuming those are their next 2 guys to fill. Not the biggest fan of either of those players, to be honest with you. I do feel like they kind of drafted Jeremy Bernard to sort of be what they wanted Roman Wilson to be, maybe a little bit bigger version of that, but to kind of be that gadget guy. Maybe they can hand it to him out of the backfield, line him up in the backfield, put him in the slot, do all sorts of different things with him. I think Jeremy Bernard is going to be that guy. And then, of course, DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman on the outside, just hopefully being deep ball savants out there, with Jeremy Bernard doing some of that underneath work. And, of course, their tight end room is very nice as well. Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth as a tight end duo is fantastic. Complement each other very, very well. You're going to hear me say complimentary in this video a lot. I like a lot of what the Steelers have built here, and just playing the one position off of each other, or how they built a room. Like in this case with the tight end room, you kind of have Darnell Washington as a bigger, stockier, obviously a huge tight end, is that kind of a more of an inline blocker. And then Pat Freiermuth is more of that hip tight end, that move tight end. You can line him up in the slot, line him off of the hip of the other tight end, Washington, and kind of do a lot of things in the pass game with them. They did add Noah Kowski in the 5th round in this year's draft, more of a fullback tight end blocking guy as well, so sort of rounding out that room. And then Jaylen Warren was already a super great running back, I think, in this league. I don't want to call him a top tier running back or anything like that, but super serviceable. And I think serviceable, that might even be being disrespectful. Great running back, very good player. And then they added Rico Dowdle to play off of Warren, and I think that's another perfectly complementary player. Rico Dowdle kind of is that hammer, getting downhill, running in between the tackles, getting upfield. And then you have Jaylen Warren, not that he can't do those things, but the guy that you can get the ball in space and kind of let him do his work out there. So for the offensive skill positions as a whole, I am going to give them a 7 out of 10. I think they're going to be an above average group for Aaron Rodgers to work with. DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman as your 1A and 1B. Hopefully Jeremy Bernard can kind of catch on quick, because I think they're going to ask him to do a lot of things in this offense. And then all these other guys, Freiermuth, Washington, Warren, all serviceable, good NFL players that, like I said, is going to be an overall above average unit at the very least for Aaron Rodgers to work with this fall. Now moving to the offensive line, I think they have 2 fantastic, great starters in place with Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier. And of course, the Steelers did a bang-up job in that 24 draft, Fautanu being their first rounder, Frazier being their second rounder in that 24 draft. So just a really good job drafting 2 long-time, I think what are going to be long-time offensive starters for you along that line. And of course, Broderick Jones is still on the roster. I certainly don't want to speculate about that, but the drafting of Max Honicher with their first-round pick unfortunately does make me a little less hopeful that they expect Broderick Jones to be back this season, but we will see. Of course, that'd be a good problem to have, having too many tackles between Fautanu, Honicher, and Broderick Jones, but we'll see what happens with him. I do like Max Honicher. I do like that pick. Obviously going to be a tall task for a rookie to come in and play that other tackle spot, but they do still have Mason McCormick inside, who started a ton of games. I think he started 15 games 2 years ago, and then he started all 17 games in 2025. So you like them all returning that left side of the line, Fautanu, McCormick, and of course the center, Zach Frazier. And then at right guard, I do think there is going to be some competition. You do have Spencer Anderson. He did start some games over the past 2 years for the team. They did draft Jennings Dunker in the 3rd round. And then they signed Brock Hoffman from Dallas in free agency. So I think there's going to be some competition at that right guard spot, presuming their first-round pick, Ohanacher, can just go on ahead and step into that right tackle spot, and hopefully he can be just a good player right off the rip. Of course, that's a big ask there for a young kid. But first-round pick, hopefully he can step in and do a good job. And I think they're going to have a really good offensive line. I'm going to give this line a 7 out of 10. Again, I think they have the potential to be an above-average unit. Fatanu, Frazier being very nice players, cornerstones of this offensive line. And I just don't think there's a lot of questions along this offensive line. Maybe you say the right guard spot, but they're certainly throwing a lot of bodies at that spot to try to answer the situation there. And maybe even you get Broderick Jones, one of these guys can kick into guard. Maybe you kick Ohanacher into guard, or one of these guys or Broderick Jones, however that would work out. Kick one of them in, and then you have a really, really solid offensive line, assuming that would work out. But overall, like I said, I think this is going to be an above-average unit standing in front of Aaron Rodgers. Moving to the defense, I think this front is Super Bowl worthy if TJ Watt can get back to what he was in 2024 and before. 2025 was a down year for TJ Watt. His numbers were just down in a lot of areas. Total pressures were down, total tackles, sacks even were down overall in 2025. But if he can get back to being that top-tier elite pass rusher that we know he is, I think this front is very much Super Bowl worthy. And that's not just rushing the passer, that's the guys on the inside as well as the guys rushing the passer on the outside. The 4 guys on the inside that they have, I think they can move them around however they need to move them around. That's Cam Hayward, Derek Harmon, Keanu Benton, and then new free agent signing who just signed recently, I do believe, Sebastian Joseph Day. I think they can do a ton of things with those guys inside, a lot of different alignments that they can go with. Between the young guy Derek Harmon, Hayward, Keanu Benton being one of those movable pieces, Sebastian Joseph Day moving all up and down the defensive line. I think those 4 guys are very versatile, and they're going to give you a lot of different stuff between the pass rush and just stopping the run there. And I think they have 3 super solid edge rushers between Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Nick Herbig. I think, and then of course if Watt can, like I said, elevate his game to that elite pass rusher level there, that is what would push this group just completely over the top. But I think Highsmith and Herbig are 2 really good pass rushers whenever they get on there. Of course, one of them, if you're playing opposite of TJ Watt, that's going to be very helpful as well. But overall, this defensive line, I think, just gives you a lot between the pass rush and the run stopping ability. And I just think they are, like I said, a Super Bowl worthy front. I do like the linebackers that are playing in behind them, Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen. I think, again, they are very complementary players of each other. Patrick Queen can kind of go see and go get that ball, with Peyton Wilson, cleaning up a lot of that in between the tackles area. So super solid linebacker duo. And then you look at that back end, Joey Porter and Jamel Dean are a nice duo on the outside. And then if you do see a little bit of regression from Dean, either in training camp this year or as the year goes on, you still do have Asante Samuel Jr. on the roster. You drafted Dalen Everett out of Georgia this year in the draft. So you do have some other answers out there on the other side of Joey Porter Jr. if Jamel Dean doesn't quite work out the way you want him to. And then it's freeing up Ramsey to go on ahead and play that nickel spot in this defense, which I think just best suits him and the defense as a whole, to be honest with you. And of course, it's not just those corners that's freeing him up to go on ahead and play this nickel spot. It's these safeties, Deshaun Elliott and Jaquan Brisker, and they are a nice safety duo. I think they're going to be a very serviceable duo. I've always been a big fan of Brisker, so very curious to see what he can do in Pittsburgh. And I'm going to give this defense, again, another 7 out of 10. I think they can be an above average unit, and I think the only thing that really holds me back from giving this defense an 8 or a 9 or even a 10 and saying this is going to be an elite defense that is going to carry this team to a playoff berth and carry them to a long playoff stretch is just the age concerns of their top 3 guys, Watt, Hayward, and Ramsey, all in their 30s now, kind of getting to that mid-30s area for these guys. And not that I'm predicting this, but obviously I did give them a 7 out of 10, so I think they are going to be an at least above average unit. But sometimes when it falls off for these guys, it just falls off and then it doesn't come back for these older guys, and it just kind of goes off a cliff. So I'm not saying that's going to happen for Watt or Hayward or Ramsey. I think they're all going to be very good players this year, but sometimes when it happens quick, and those are 3 of your best players, probably your 3 best players on the defense, so certainly some risk involved with that being the case. But overall, I think it's going to be an above average unit, and we're going to stick with a 7 out of 10 for this defense surrounding Rodgers. And coaching is our last category. And the Steelers did fire Mike Tomlin after a very long tenure with the team, and they decided to hire Mike McCarthy as their head football coach this year. And the last time Mike McCarthy was leading an NFL program was in 2024 with the Dallas Cowboys, where the team did go 7-10. Although I will say I do believe they were 12-4 the 3 years prior to that, and they did get playoff berths out of that, obviously. So it wasn't all bad there, but it did end bad in Dallas the last time he was coaching in the NFL. And there is the Rodgers-McCarthy connection. They obviously did win a Super Bowl in Green Bay together against the Pittsburgh Steelers, funnily enough. And I don't necessarily mind the hiring of Mike McCarthy. It's just I wish the Steelers would have completely gone in a different direction entirely and not done this entire Rodgers thing. And I feel like they're just to expect more of the same, unfortunately. So it's not that I think Mike McCarthy is a bad head coach or anything like that. I just wish they would have gone with one of these younger candidates and went with a Udinski from Jacksonville or a Nate Shieldhouse from the Rams and just went with one of these young up-and-coming guys and just went in a completely different direction and not even necessarily rebuilt, but just try to put the franchise moving in a different direction rather than just kind of giving you more of the same with Mike McCarthy. So we'll see how the 2026 version of the McCarthy-Rodgers combo goes. But Patrick Graham is the defensive coordinator for this team. He is the new defensive coordinator, just signed over this year. He was the DC in Vegas from 2022 to 2025 prior to taking this job, so we'll see how that kind of works out. He definitely has a very good unit to work with. But overall, I am going to give this coaching situation for Aaron Rodgers a 4 out of 10. I know he has that history with Mike McCarthy, but I just question how it's going to work in 2026. And the last time I saw Mike McCarthy, he was floundering out of the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys, and it just didn't look good that season. And with a lot of aging players on this team, we'll see if Mike McCarthy can get that buy-in from these guys and lead them on a path to a Super Bowl. But I am going to stick with a 4 out of 10, just a little bit below average for Mike McCarthy and his staff there surrounding Aaron Rodgers. And maybe they can prove me wrong, and Mike McCarthy will be a great offense coordinator, great play caller, but we'll see. I'm going to stick with a 4 out of 10 for right now going into the 2026 season. Overall, I have to say, I think Aaron Rodgers has a ton to work with for this upcoming season. And that's why the final grade for Rodgers' surrounding pieces is a 25 out of 40 total possible points, or 63%. I think every area of the roster has the potential to be an above average unit at least. The only part of the team I'm a little bit down on is the coaching situation, and that's more of a frustration of what a different direction might have looked like in Pittsburgh. But I definitely understand the hiring of McCarthy if the plan was to try to go get Rodgers to come back for one more season. And overall, I do think he's a fine hire. But going into the 26th season, I think at least 63% of what the Steelers have surrounded their quarterback with will be a positive thing for his overall performance. That's it for this video. Let me know what you agreed with or disagreed with in the comments below. Thank you for watching.